Hey guys, and holy shit, episode 5 of Ahsoka. Let's get to it. Now this episode, see Hayden Christensen again, like him talking, him moving. He has the lightsaber stuff down to a T. Like the choreography of him is fantastic. You can tell that he was trained to use the lightsaber much different than all the other people. He was trained under George Lucas, and I can't remember what the guy's name is now. Something Gilligan. Fantastic, absolute fantastic play from Hayden. I've scoured the internet. Everyone is praising Hayden. Everyone is loving Hayden right now, and it's nice to see that. I'm so glad Hayden's getting the love. I've always liked Hayden. I understand that some people didn't like his character in Clone Wars. Definitely Clone Wars, not the Clone Wars TV show. Clone Wars movie, and I definitely know, and I understand that. Yeah, sure, he was more whiny. I guess for some, it's like, how does that go to the badass Darth Vader that we know today? Fair enough. Like, I'm not gonna put it against it. Like, his commentary, the way he was talking, the way he was walking is more important. He was just poised so well as like a Jedi with power, new, supreme, elite, threatening, intense, which is the word they used for him. Which definitely is a word to describe Anakin Skywalker. One of the best guys ever. Like, I love Anakin, man. Watching Clone Wars, growing up watching that show, man, I fell in love with the character, man. He is my favorite Star Wars character, and one of my favorite characters in fiction, hands down. Western fiction, probably my favorite. Like, I don't see myself liking someone more. Maybe Aang from Avatar is up there, but I don't think he rivals Anakin. Like, seeing Anakin on screen kind of makes me, it tears me up. It tears me up. I'm mostly going to focus on, between Anakin and Ahsoka in this episode, because that was definitely the most highlights. The rest is fine. It's not bad. It continues, trying to find Ahsoka and all this stuff, so I'll leave that at that. But we're going to focus mostly on, Ahsoka and Anakin themselves. So Anakin is trying to teach Ashoka a lesson. Live or die. Now, live or die isn't actually the lesson itself. Live or die is a way to get her to understand what he is trying to convey to her. When he's saying live or die, he's saying to her, do you want to keep on the way that you've been living? Not really being your true self, not really clinging to the past, and you will die if you cling to the past, if you don't fight, if you don't move forward. That's what he's trying to show. Like, going through the cutscenes after the initial fight was just fantastic to see him doing that spin behind his back. So many people highlight that. It's fantastic. I'm glad they know that. He was aggressive. He was fluent. He knew what he was doing, and it's nice to see a Jedi Master using those techniques. And then after that, he crashes them down into the Clone Wars, which was fantastic to see. I loved seeing that. Some people complained about the fog of war aspect of the episode, but I think it was important to kind of set, not just for the flashback. I mean, you can kind of tell it's a flashback from the voices are a bit muffled, which is kind of a common thing to do for flashbacks. But also, apart from that, yeah, it kind of shows how busy and how dangerous and unknown the battlefield was during the Clone Wars. Like, it was difficult. It was difficult to know what was going on. There was so much going on. It's trying to show how crazy the battlefield is during that time. And Ahsoka's young and she's crashing. She doesn't understand. And yeah, Anakin says that's the problem. You don't understand. You just don't understand. And he needs to teach her what she needs to understand. Now, actually, we're going to get into that in the end. So let's continue. And people have already pointed out that there's 3 different planets we're on, and they actually followed the path of the Clone Wars TV show, which was great to see. I always watch Star Wars with one of my friends, and I was pointing out, yo, that's that scene. He watches Clone Wars as well, but he hasn't watched it as many times as me to hint it out. And yeah, they're going through these different battlefields, and I'm like, yo, this is great. This is great. That's Ryloth, that's that planet, which I can't remember, Christostis, I think, maybe, at one point. It was so nice to see, and to see them fight, and then they end up in Mandalore, and then that's when she's more ready to fight. And Anakin, I love Anakin saying that he hasn't seen this battle before, because he wasn't there. He wasn't in that battle. He never fought on Mandalore, because he wasn't on Mandalore. He was separate from Ahsoka at that time. with General, I think suffered General Grievous, and yeah, she came here by herself with some clone troopers with his 501st, his boys, with Rex. And it was cool to see Rex. I love Rex, just seeing Rex. I was pointing out, oh, it's Rex, because I was happy. I love Rex, man. He's one of my favorite characters as well. Like, damn, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And moving on from then, like, yeah, in the third one, she definitely kind of, was more ready to she was fine. She was ready. She was there. She was the commander. But I did move past the second part actually a bit. And the second part is interesting. How they're talking about loss, and they're talking about Jedi makes mistakes. Jedi don't know everything. They can't. I mean, watching the Clone Wars, there's so many instances where people died. Obi-Wan had to watch. Anakin had to watch. All these people had to watch these people fall. In front of them. Yoda. All these clones. Like, there's just so many people. And they had to move on. They couldn't feel the weight of the war on their shoulders. They had to move on and keep on the fight. For good. For the light. And that was something that he was trying to teach her. You have to move on. You can't just stop fighting. You can't just stop or you will die. You have to move on with your life. And this was the other message she was trying to teach her, which he gets into more in the third part, is that everyone is, you have to carry on from the past. You are the past. You carry on from your past. But you shouldn't be shackled by your past. Which was getting into the third part. About him being Darth Vader. Him turning to Darth Vader. Her master. The person she looked up to the most in the world. The most powerful potential Jedi that's existed. The chosen one. If the chosen one can fail, her master, then anyone can fail. And she felt that. She felt that depression. And I could see that. It was easier to see her emotions when she was a kid than when she was an adult. And that's I think that's fine. But it's just something interesting to point out. And then she points out that, you're Darth... Well, she didn't say you're Darth Vader. She said that you're more dangerous and powerful than anyone could have known. And I spoke, he said, yeah, you've learned nothing. Back to the beginning. Insinuating throughout these 3 flashbacks, she hasn't been learning the subtleties in what he's trying to teach her. Trying to teach her that her legacy is a continuation of his. But not everything he is her. But also, just because you make mistakes doesn't mean you can't be redeemed. He was redeemed. You have to accept the bad and the good with you and move on, become better. And that's what Anakin is. That's what he's become. After that, he said you learned nothing. Back to the beginning. Light up his lightsaber. Live or die. Incorrect. Strikes for her. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. And this time the lightsaber's red. He's bringing out the Darth Vader. Darth Anakin. The Sith side. Coming through. They're fighting. He pushes her back into the world between worlds. They're fighting more. He's really hammering to her. And he lets her get the lightsaber. And that's that. Live or die. And she says, I want to live. You need to live past his legacy. You need to live past Vader. You have to move on. It wasn't your fault. What happened wasn't your fault. Move on. Now, this stuff is quite ambiguous, to be honest. It's fantastic stuff, but it's also ambiguous. I think for the general public, being a bit more on the nose might have helped. I think it would have helped. Some people, even though they said, I watched the Clone Wars, I didn't understand the message. It's like, yes, I don't blame you. I guess I face value the messages live or die, which is quite a simple message. Like, yeah, of course you're gonna have to live or die. Like, what else is there? Like, it's obvious. Like, but the message that he's actually saying is much more impactful, and it makes a lot more sense in canon, and it's fantastic. But they could have been more on the nose of it. They could have highlighted it a bit more, and I think that would have been great. I think that would have been good for the story in general. Then after that, he says there's hope for you left, and then disappears. Hope for you yet, actually. And it's sad that, that might be the only part we see of Anakin. I wish we see more. And that's the most upsetting and annoying thing, is that I mean, it's just so great because, I mean, people say this is fan service. This isn't fan service in a negative way. Anakin should be in the show. It doesn't make sense for him to not be in the show. He is her master. Yes, everyone wants to see it, but just because everyone wants to see it doesn't mean because they do it is fan service. That is stupid. That doesn't make sense. Just because everyone wants something doesn't mean it's fan service. Sometimes everyone wants something because they think it should happen. It makes sense to happen. And yeah, people can make judgments that make sense, and movies and shows can represent that correctly because it makes sense. Now the way they do it, that's the nuance. That's the difference. You know, just because you don't want to make sense and do fan service, that's how you get The Last Jedi. Because what people expected and what made sense in the story, they didn't want to do. They wanted to do the opposite, to surprise everyone. And you just piss everyone off. So people are saying this is just fan service. People are like, this for fan service. No, you're just being disingenuous. You're not really thinking. You're just hearing a word that you heard someone say on the internet and started regurgitating it everywhere because you thought it was clever to say. But in some situations it's clever, some situations are not. And this is one where it's obviously not. Because how are you going to have an Ahsoka show without Anakin? Anakin was a master. So you had to fight him in Rebels. See, was with him in episode 1 of Clone Wars. She didn't exist in episode 1, but in the movies. All the way to season 5. And she left in season 5 and they never saw each other again. Or did they see each other in season 7? I actually can't remember now. Maybe. So, fan service, no. But if you're going to call it fan service, this is the good type of fan service. But even though it's great, I will always think there's a match opportunity to see more. For him to ask, for him to tell her about Vader. For him to tell her about Anakin Skywalker and how he fell into Vader. About his son, about his daughter, about Obi-Wan, the battles, about how he's sorry, about how he was wrong, how the Jedi were wrong, about how everything went wrong. I think we could have had more, which is the disappointing part. But it's good because that shows how much people want this stuff and how much people value this stuff and how impactful these scenes were that people want more from it. That shows how great it was. They don't want less, they want more. This is great. But it's still gonna tingle my brain. I wish we did, but we didn't, and I just had to accept that. Maybe in the future, maybe not. You know, it was magical. This is a magical moment for Clone Wars fans, for Rebels fans, for Star Wars fans. It's a magical moment. Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, and Ahsoka Tano, like Sky Guy and Snips, S&S, crazy. But yeah, he disappears and she comes back. They rescue her and they move off. Another interesting part was her and the whale. And she, after this, she wakes up and she's wearing white. She seems much happier. The character's coming out. She's lifted from this burden. Now, some people, I do think they could have portrayed that she was burdened a bit better in episode 1 and 2, definitely. I mean, you can kind of see that she's burdened, but like I said, it's very nuanced. It's not on the nose. I don't think you have to be on the nose of everything. I think some people expecting things to be on the nose of everything is a bit weird. How can you expect what, and why should you expect things to be so blatant? Trying to force down a point. No, it just needs to be a bit more nuanced. It needs to be shown a bit more in the story. And I think episode 1 and 2 should have done that a bit more. It did do it, but not perfectly. It's a bit hard to kind of tell sometimes when someone's kind of stoic because they're a Jedi or someone is like this because of their personality. It's difficult, and I think they should have hammered it down that, you know, it's because of trauma and the personality that she's adopted because of what 20 years has done to her, you know, after the Clone Wars, between episode 3 and episode 9. Well, actually not that far. So episode 3 and episode 6, which is a lot. She's had to witness a lot. Yeah. And all the regrets she had, and now she's better. She's clearer. You know, she's talking to the world. They have this plan, and now they're going off to see Ezra. And I was interested in seeing the Sky Worlds and them coming back and all this intrigue. Like, it's nice stuff. It's fantastic. It's nice scenes. And now they're going to the next galaxy. And I love it. You know, this episode was great. I don't think it was as good as the last episode in intensity, and, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Excitement. But this was a more important episode to the fandom and to the lore and to the characters. It's just so important. I'm so glad we saw it. I'm so glad. A late addition to this episode that I want to talk about well, it's not episode. About this episode, but in this video, is about Anakin and how Anakin was able to change from the dark side, using the dark side to the light. He has full control over the light and the dark now. He has become something totally new. Now I don't know where he exists, in what realm, in what way anymore. It's kind of hard to explain. The way of the Force is strange, and I think that's one of the things that Dave Filoni really wants to convey to people, that it's not so simple. The Force isn't simple. It's a complex thing. You know, it's not just about force push and force pull, force speed, force jump, and sense and stuff. It's much more than that. I think that's what they really wanted to highlight. And yeah, he's fully mastered it. He is a new type of Jedi. One that has reconciled with his dark side, being Darth Vader. He's accepted it. He's taken it, and he's moved forward from that. He is a new man. He is a new person. He's a new soul. He's Anakin Skywalker in the flesh, and in the heart. And it was great to see. Honestly, it was fantastic. It really made me tear up thinking about that. Because like I said, Anakin's one of my favorite characters, man. And you know, just to know he burnt. He was living this life. He was always a slave. Like people say, like Star Wars theory says, you know, he was a slave in childhood. His mother was a slave. He was a slave to the Jedi. He was a slave to his emotions. He was a slave to his injuries. He was a slave to Palpatine. He was a slave throughout all his life until he's dead. He was always a slave. And then he's finally redeemed, and he has a few minutes, some moments of peace until he dies. That's a sad life. He was always a slave. And now he's been able to rise up as the chosen one. He's been able to change. He's been able to deliberate and become much more than what he started off as. And it's amazing. I can't properly articulate how that feels. Maybe the pauses in what I'm speaking, how I'm speaking will lay down how important it is. Yeah, I'm just in awe. I was just in awe. I'm a very happy Star Wars fan. I'm a very happy Clone Wars fan. I'm a very happy originals, prequels. I'm a happy fan. I'm a happy fan. Now, what does this mean for Anakin moving forward? It seems like he's taken the position as a mortis god. You know, the father. It definitely seems that, and it's fantastic to see that he's moved into something new, and I love that. It really brings me back to the son. I can't remember his exact words, but he separates when Obi-Wan calls him a Sith. He says not a Sith. He's dark, but he's not a Sith. Now, that the Sith align themselves with the dark, but the dark doesn't necessarily align itself with the Sith. In the same instance, there can be people who are light, who are good, but it doesn't mean they align themselves to the light side, you know, or being a Jedi. Just because a Jedi use the light side of the Force, it doesn't mean people who use the light associate themselves with the Jedi. And it's the same with the dark. People who tap more into the dark, it doesn't mean they align themselves with the Sith just because they're tapping into the dark. And the Son was the amalgamation of that. And it was interesting that he said that. You know, it's kind of hard to really put that into words or into explanation until now, actually. Or maybe there's a comic I could read that would make me really understand that. But Anakin really shows it. He can use. He's more than that. You're more than that because I'm more than that. Those words ring deep. You know, Ahsoka is more than just a Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. More than someone who was trained by someone who became Darth Vader. More than someone who ran away from the Order. She's a strong Jedi. She's a strong person with a strong will, with a nice, great heart, who's always looked out for people, who's always tried her best, passionate, has charisma, has strength, has spirit. That's always gonna ring on to me, you know. You're more than that. Because I'm more than that. Damn. That's insane. That's actually insane. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.